Aren't we meeting up tomorrow?
Oh, what was that, Eric?
Aren't we meeting up tomorrow?
No, no. Where it doesn't say that anywhere, does it? And we should be meeting up let's see here. Today's what, day 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, Tuesday the 21st. Yeah, Tuesday the 21st is when we're meeting up. Sorry, I just realized I was like circling your name. Yeah. Okay. So looking at SAQ training, speed, agility, and quickness, right? We have got this is going to work a little bit differently, right? Like this is normally, until now, it's like we've had like core stabilization, core strength, core power. Works a little bit differently for SAQ because like when you think about like athleticism on a field or on a court or on, wherever, you think of like, well, you need a little bit of speed, you need a little bit of agility, and you need a little bit of quickness. So these are really going to be drills that kind of combine a lot of, they all kind of play off of one another and feed into one another, rather than just simply being their own, kind of thing, where like you would maybe do like stabilization speed drills, strength speed drills, and power speed drills. It's not going to work like that. It's going to work a little bit differently. So we'll get into that. But let's just go ahead and talk. Our objectives today, we want to talk about like what SAQ training actually is and why it is so important for most sports. Be able to write a fun SAQ program and then, instruct that to our clients. So when I say SAQ training, like what I mean by speed, agility, and quickness training, it's a very sport specific style of training designed to improve. And then this is our speed, our agility, and our quickness. So that's what we're talking about when we talk about like SAQ training, right? And this is great because like a lot of times, like I keep saying, like what determines whether or not you are going to win in a sport is oftentimes whoever can do the task the fastest. A lot of sports rely on like quick reaction speeds, agility, and just overall like speed in general. So if we can improve like all of those things and get all of those things to like a really high level, it's not only going to like help us succeed in our sport, but it's also going to reduce our risk of injury, because you're less likely to push yourself out of that safety zone. You know what I mean by that? Like how many times, I mean, probably everybody in here at some point has done something like working out is safe in general, but human beings working out is not always safe. And what I mean is like, I'm sure you guys have done this, because I know I've done this, where it's like you're just getting to the end and you're like you're at 8 out of 10 reps and you're starting to feel tapped out and you're like, and then you do the 9th and you're like, and then your form breaks down a little bit and you're like, you do some kind of compensation because you just want to finish that set. In my brain, it's like I know that rep almost doesn't even count because I'm arching my back or I'm tilting or I'm cheating, in some capacity. But like I need to finish. You know what I mean? Like that's the human in me, right? Like you shouldn't push yourself beyond this capacity, but it's like, yeah, but I'm so close to the end, I'm gonna, And so like if you can raise your overall athleticism, that bar is going to be much higher for you, and it's going to reduce your risk of injury because you're not going to be pushing, if you are dominating other players on the field, you don't have to sort of like push yourself out of that. You don't have to give 110% when you should only be giving 100%, so it does reduce our risk of injury and improve our overall just athletic performance in general. So before we move too far forward, the PowerPoint's going to have me go in order. It's going to do speed, and then it's going to come to agility, and then it's going to come to quickness. But I'm just going to go ahead and get the definitions out of the way for all three right now, just so that like for my new folks, you guys know exactly what we mean when we say like SAQ. So speed is linear speed. Okay, that is how fast you can run from here to here. That's what speed is, right? Doesn't matter how you do it. You could bear crawl, that's your bear crawl speed. You could sprint, that's your run speed. You could side shuffle, right? Anything that's just moving you from point A to point B, that is your speed, okay? It could even have like a little bit of like curving, you know, like maybe it's point A and then it's around like a track to point B. That's still speed. But the other ones we have are agility and quickness. Now, agility is all about directional change. Now, this is a little bit of directional change, right? So like you can see, like if I did like a rainbow arc, you know, from one place to another, I would call that a speed drill because primarily, you know, I'm not really making a really hard, sharp turn. But if I were to like go from here to here and then over here, here and here, if I did like a box, right, that's like a 90-degree angle at every corner. That's a pretty sharp turn, you know? So that very much, so if I'm doing some type of drill that involves that, that's my agility. Agility is your ability to change direction as quickly as possible. And it's also your acceleration speed and your deceleration speed. Both of those things are agility, right? So like, I'll give you a good example. I'll give you an ultimate frisbee example here from my pickup game on Saturday. I think I only came away with like 2 points on the day because I only got to play one game this last Saturday. But like the guy that was guarding me was one of the fastest guys like that I play with, and so it's always like a really big challenge. And you know, we've got the end zone here, and I'm basically, that actually looks like what our end zone would look like because we never do our line straight. But you know, basically like the disc is going to come like floating around like this way, and he's guarding me here, and then like I'm like right over here, and so like I sprinted this way, but then like cut back, and then he came this way, and circled around him here, and was able to cut that off before he was able to get there, because then like my body was in his way, right? So that is, yeah, there's a little bit of linear speed there. Like I definitely ran really fast, but what allowed me to like break free was that I stopped in my tracks, hopped back, and then sprinted forward in the other direction. So I was able to decelerate very quickly and then accelerate again very quickly after that. That's an agility thing, right? And that's different than speed, because if we are both just like running straight out and both trying to like run it, honestly, he'd probably outrun me. So you do want to make sure that you're also training for agility as well, because that is also going to help with overall athleticism. So speed is running in one direction as fast as possible. It's how fast you can run in that one direction. Agility is your directional change. So like if you're able to accelerate, if you're able to decelerate, and if you're able to like turn, that's your agility. And then quickness is your ability to change body position at like very fast speeds. Now that might make it sound like, well, body position, that would be me like, you know, agility, right? Like that would be me like transferring like agility wise, right? Kind of, yeah, kind of. But quickness is actually more about like changing like your overall body position, right? So like if you threw something at me and my hands were down at my sides, and then I changed my body position in response to like this thing coming at my face, and then adjusted and caught it, right? Like that change in body position and like catch, that's actually what we mean by quickness. Quickness is much more related to like hand-eye coordination than it is to like your ability to like sprint and run and change direction and stuff, right? But it could also not necessarily, it doesn't have to be hand-eye coordination. It could also just be like response time, you know? So like, you know, we could do a quickness test if we had, you know, everybody's cameras activated right now, and we played like Simon Says, you know, and I was like, Simon says, do this. Simon says, do that. Simon says, do this, do this. Yeah, like, and whoever's going to react the fastest, they, you know, and changing their position in relation to what I'm telling them to do. Like Simon says, raise your arm. Simon says, step to the left, right? Depending on what your reaction to that is, that's your quickness, right? So quickness is, it's a response to an external stimulus, right? most sports rely on quickness, like in real time, like a basketball player paying attention to somebody who's trying to do a crossover, a football player paying attention to how somebody's like trying to juke to the left, to the right, a baseball player trying to track a ball, or even just like think about like baseball players like in the middle of a rundown, right? Like if they're both running back and forth trying to steal a base, right? If one person's able to like, yeah, there's directional change in there. So like the sprinting back and forth is very much agility. But like when the player knows to stop and back up away from that ball as they like see it coming, right? That's their quickness, right? Quickness is that change in body position where it's like, oh, now I need to start doing this one. So they do all kind of blend together. You can see how there's some serious blending going on here, right? Like a lot of agility drills still have a speed component to them, because you are running fast. A lot of agility drills have a quickness component to them as well, because a lot of times, like, it'll be like, and go, like coach will tell you, and then you sprint off, right? Or you hear a gunshot go off in like a race, like that is whoever's going to respond to that the fastest. That's why there's so many false starts in like track and field and stuff, because people will go slightly early because they're kind of assuming when that gun's going to go off. So that's what we've got here, right? That is our sort of brief overview definitions. We'll start going in order. We'll go ahead and start with speed here. Speed is, like I said, how quickly you can travel in one intended direction as fast as possible. And so if you're going to have, and this is our foundation for everything else, like, even if you do have really good hand-eye coordination, if you're the slowest person on the court, it's probably not going to serve you very well if you're not very agile, So speed is really our foundation for everything. And it's where you'll start most of your drills. A lot of like track and field runners, for instance, will simply work on body mechanics before they ever get into like massive, sprinting. A lot of athletes will start by building up like a cardiovascular foundation or just an ability to like run in general. That is what we want to do with our speed drills. We do want to kind of build everything upon this. You can see like this is why, this kind of gets the most notes today. But speed is the culmination of it. It's a very reactive exercise. Yesterday we talked about plyometrics and reactives, right? Speed requires a lot of reactivity. When you think about like sprinting, right? The second your foot touches the ground, you should be switching to the form that's going to help you switch that to your back leg. Your other leg should be like swinging forward and getting into your next step. Whoever can turn their feet over the fastest is probably going to be a little speedier, Now, obviously, that's going to require us to make sure that we can keep our freaking body in alignment and make sure that we're not like, sprinting as fast as we can and our upper body's like hanging, like, can you imagine if you were just like running from just like the torso down and then like you completely forgot to contract your upper body, like your legs would just take off and you just kind of like fold, you'd fly back and your arms would be like a Muppet. Like sprinting through the, it's like the Kermit run, like that. That's not really going to make you the speediest person. So we do need to have like this proper stabilization, not only in like the upper body and spine, that's going to allow us to breathe properly, but also like stability in the foot, the ankle, the knee, the hips, right, throughout the entire body. So we need to have like proper stabilization when it comes to velocity there, working on our speed drills, right? So speed's really great because it goes back to that idea of like the force velocity curve, right? Remember how I told you guys how this is the classic force velocity curve right here. If you have a lot of muscle force, right, you can see I'm not very far along the velocity trail, so when I have a lot of force, I don't have a lot of velocity, meaning like if I told you, if I said, Alexis, I want to have you, grab that 50-pound cannonball and I want you to get it to the other side of the field as fast as you can, right? That's gonna take a while. Like that's not going to be the easiest thing in the world to pick up and move, or if you're trying to roll it, that's not going to happen. It's heavy. There's a lot of force there, so your velocity for it is going to be relatively low. But if I said, all right, I want you to try to move this 5-pound medicine ball to the other side of the field, well, there's not very force behind like a 5-pound medicine ball, but it does have like a lot of velocity, because now you can probably move that much more rapidly. When you look at like the difference between a bowling ball or a baseball, they are going to have slightly different like velocities, because they have slightly different forces. One is going to be much heavier than the other one is there. Now, don't get this force velocity curve mixed up with power. Remember, power is force times velocity. So if we multiply those two things together, that's what gives us the overall power output. So for instance, we go back to, I always use math as kind of an example for this, because it's a good like visual aid. But like, when you have high force, right, you are going to naturally have low velocity, right? These are just, they have an inverse relationship, right? And I just put them in this order. Obviously these arrows would flip around if I did it the other way, right? So, when I have a high force, I'm not going to have a high velocity. So if we're looking at power, right, power is going to be force times velocity equals your overall power output, right? If we know that that's sort of our formula here, well, let's look at what would happen with that 50-pound cannonball example, right? So let's say, Alexis has to get this 50-pound cannonball from one side of a football field to the other, and I'm gonna measure how long it takes, to do this, right? It's gonna be a race against the clock. Alexis, you got to get this thing over here, right? So that's 50 pounds. And let's say it took, if we're we got to figure out like what our overall like velocity is here. Let's say like as she's trying to do this, she's traveling, I don't know, probably at the very most 2 miles per hour, Alexis, I don't know how fast you can run, but it probably isn't very relevant right here anyways, because you're not really going to be able to run with this 50-pound, metal ball in your arms, like, so I'm just going to say 2 pounds, because like 2 miles per hour is like, most people walk at like a speed of 3 on the treadmill. This is slightly lower than that. You're probably walking a little slower than you normally do. So we'll say that we've got it. There's our overall like power output, right? So 50 times 2, that gives us 100 units of power. Okay. But then I'll put that here. That's the high. Well, no, I'll put this over here. So that's our high force example. Okay. So this is high force and low velocity. But what if I did the exact same thing and I said, all right, well, now I'm going to have you lift these this little 2-pound weight, this little like gentle weight. It's only 2 pounds. Then measure how fast you can run. Now 2 pounds is probably not going to hold you back very much, right? So maybe you're running at, let's say, 8 miles per hour. That'd be an 8 on the treadmill, so we'll say like 2 pounds times 8 miles per hour, right, equals, and that's only going to be like 16 units of power. So even though she was able to move much faster in this version, in this second version here, you can see the overall power output is actually substantially lower, and that's what happens when you like put too much effort in one area. Like this version here, we had so much force that we lost a lot, so that we lost a massive amount of velocity, which reduced our overall power output. And in this version here, we dropped our force so low that we were able to we were able to gain a lot of velocity, but we lost overall power output, right? Now, this formula, this whole force times velocity thing, right? Again, the example I used, I think the other day was like, I used like a very even number example. If it was like 5 times 5 equals 25. So if you had an even amount of force and an even amount of velocity, right? But if you took one away from one and added it to the other, because that's what happens, right? They have if you pull from one, it's going to do something to the other. That gave us less overall power. So a lot of times what we're trying to do is we're trying to shift both numbers. We're trying to, enhance both our force and velocity. We want to shift the entire curve. And that way, we basically take this blue line and we just raise it this direction. I'm not going to be able to, can I copy this image? Can I do that? Yeah, I guess I can. We're basically just going to take this blue line right here, and we're just going to move it this way. We're going to shift the whole thing. And so now we have a new force velocity curve, and the rule's still the same. The higher the force, the lower the velocity, but the entire thing, if these are, if suddenly I have like numbers on this thing, this is going to be a much, much, much more powerful person, right? So that's one of the reasons why we train for plyometrics. Now you might be thinking, okay, that's great. Why are we talking about this when we're talking about speed? Speed actually works exactly the same way. We need to have proper stabilization, strength, and power, because one of the things that we're going to try to do is we're going to try to shift our force velocity curve using like speed drills, right? And so we'll come back to that in just 1 second when we get to the sort of the components of what makes somebody like speedy. But we talk about like, having like proper stabilization, proper strength, proper power. If we have all of those things, we can work on improving our overall like travel speed. We know the stability is going to be really helpful because it helps with like mobilization and stabilization, right? We know that strength is going to be very good for force production. Remember, force, right, is this the weight of something. So now once I get into like, if I start with a foundation of stabilization, and then I can work my way into strength there, right? This is where I can work on like force production, right? And that's what strength is. There's our stabilization, right? And then eventually I can work on rate of force production, which is going to be that power output. And that's the top of the staircase. And sure enough, like power is all about that rate of force production. So, there's the NASM staircase at play again there. I'm going to delete all this. This is getting messy. There's all that at play there. So speed is very relevant to any athlete, no matter what phase of training they are in. But you should always be starting with like proper form and running technique and things like that. That's where it's going to start. You start with that good foundation and everything else will naturally improve a little bit. This is where you'll hear me constantly talk about the idea of being like, I love like a good barefoot run technique rather than like a, big clunky heel. Not that you have to be barefoot while you're running. You don't have to wear those Vibram shoes either. There's plenty of barefoot style shoes out there that look normal. I'm a little judgmental of those Vibram shoes. I apologize if anybody's like a really big fan. I like them in terms of their technology. I just think they are goofy looking. And so I can't bring myself to wear them. It looks like somebody was on a jog and then they ran through a bucket of paint. And then like their foot like is just, that color. But we do want to make sure that we have like that proper stabilization first, proper like usage of the foot, proper usage of the ankle, the knee, the calf, everything. Then we can work on like force production. Then we can definitely work on like rate of force production as well. So a good speed program will start and be with that stabilization. And then it's going to be progressive and it's going to be systematic, just like we always make our routines, right? We progress so that we don't just get good at one thing. Because that's another thing. If you have an athlete who only sprints in one direction, they're not going to be very good if they ever need to like direction change. We also need to make sure that we have plenty of muscle and joint elasticity, meaning that like we want our muscles to be naturally springy. Plyometric exercises, which we talked about yesterday, are going to be very, very, very helpful for clients working on speed. You wouldn't think that a squat jump would be that related to like your overall like running speed, but it enhances the reactivity of your muscles. When you are squat jumping, right, you are training your nervous system to get better at utilizing stretch shortening cycles, where something gets stretched and then it's really sensitive and it pulls back in the opposite direction. This is actually the exact opposite of why we want to do static stretches. Static stretches, we want to turn off the muscle, right? Stretch shortening cycles, dynamic stretches, explosive movements, dynamic stretches and plyometrics are all meant to be kind of explosive that actually turn your muscles on. So these are, definitely a big component of a speed program, because like we want to be able to like hit the ground, react to it, shift that leg through, and get the other foot to hit the ground. And the faster we can turn those feet over, the more likely we are to have a little bit more speed. We do need to have proper mobility in order to be able to do all of this. You should never, start working on like a ton of speed drills if your client can't move through proper range of motion. You know what I mean? Like if they have muscle imbalances that are really bad, that's only going to be exacerbated by something as high impact as running. And then obviously all of it should always start with proper movement patterns. So we are going to spend a lot of time looking at our very first speed drills in the book that we're going to see are going to be just, stationary speed drills where you're really not moving much. Scrolling down into the speed component here. Example exercises, please. There we go. So you can see a lot of these are really just like stationary. I mean, you can see like a resisted knee drive, for instance, right? So he's got a resistance band, tied to his foot, and he's just going to work on learning how to like drive up that knee. That little bit of like hip flexor action there, right? If he can strengthen his hip flexor, he's going to be able to snap his leg forward while he's running. Snaps his leg forward, he can step into the next one, snap it forward, step into the next one, right? So that's a big part of a speed program. We're going to start not moving, and then like a heel push here, right? This is kind of a fun one. Guys, this is a terrific exercise, by the way. Like this looks so simple. This sort of like, it's almost like an upside down plank. And what it does is it's really good for turning your calves, hamstrings, and glutes on. So really great posterior chain exercise there. I love heel pushes. I think they are top of my list. We've got a little tube walking here. I like an X-band walk, just I find it much more convenient to get into and out of. But you can see she's doing it with just like a piece of tubing instead. That's fine. This is a goofy one, but like resisted calf raises. Just focus on that dorsiflexion. Even Supermans can be really helpful for building like that spinal stabilization, because it is important to keep your body upright even while you are sprinting. Arm swings, working on like upper body mechanics. Like every one of these is very much like a speed drill. Look at this, a towel. This is a towel pull. So what you're going to do is you're going to like pull the towel in, then you're going to push it away, and you're going to pull it in, and you're going to push it away and scrunch it up with your foot. Sometimes those are called towel scrunches. We're going to see those called towel scrunches. Then once we have like a good foundation of those things, and honestly, those should probably just be like warm-up drills that you do before your big run. But once we've got that, we can start working on running technique. We can do like marching, which is a good chance for you to stay light on the feet. A skips, B skips, C skips. There's a million different like skipping variations out there where you're learning how to just drive the knee up, bounce, and get to your next rep, bounce and get to your next rep. And then we've got, even just like wall drills, right? Now this is going to be, NASM's going to have you do they call it the 1-3-5 wall drill. And it's where you're going to lean against a wall. And then you're going to drive your knee up, and you're going to go 1, and then you're going to go 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And that's the big way they're going to do that. And then that would be like a rep, basically. Rest and then reset and do it again. More arm swinging. and then just straight up like acceleration drills, sprinting straight forward, resisted sprinting, right? Or assisted sprinting. So tons of drills there. Right. That is, I mean, look at how much friggin' speed there was. And there's even more that we're getting into. We get into like the lateral speed, right? Now we're starting to talk about like shifting back and forth. This is starting to get into like directional change. This is starting to get into like agility drills. But yeah, that all of that is going to be speed, and it's working on that proper movement technique. So we have a lot of very specialized drills for that. You can see tons of them out there that you can practice and get better and better at. And they're great. They also count a lot of times, like the 1-3-5 drill, I think, makes a really great like plyometric power exercise, Ooh. A lot of plyometrics are going to very much apply to this as well. It doesn't have to always be directly like, speed drills. So any questions so far on our definition of speed or how it works? Or we get a little tone shift in here? Nope. Cool. All right. Well, let's just really quickly, I do want to show you just a quick little simple speed routine that you can incorporate. Let's see here. There we go. Now, this is something that I don't normally get to curate quite as well, but I've seen. Here we go. Oh, that's not who I thought it was.
Man, and today I'm going to give you 3 ways.
Oh, but this is very good.
To sprint. Now, if you know me, then you know I love
sprint. Sprinting is the greatest full body move that one can do. We're talking about building bigger and stronger legs. We're talking about destroying body fat. We're talking about building muscle. We're talking
about
this guy's developing mental toughness. This is what sprinting will allow you to do. Now, when I was 18, 19 years old, I didn't care about getting warmed up. I thought it was a complete waste of time. But in my early 20s, I started to see that getting warmed up led to better performances, and it led to less injuries. That is the importance of getting warm. Now, in my 30s, I believe 100% in the power of a proper warm-up. You just can't come out and start sprinting full speed. You just can't come out here doing your best Usain Bolt impersonation. That's gonna lead you to pull that hammy and end up in the ER. And me personally, I don't want to see you with that that pulled hamstring. I want to see you healthy, and I want to see you strong. There are 3 keys that are going to help you prepare to sprint that are going to reduce the risk of injury. Now, the first thing that you're going to do is a general sprinter's warm-up. You're going to run through sprinter drills that sprinters have used for years to prepare their body to get ready to sprint. These drills help you get warmed up. They help you with coordination, balance, and just getting the movements of sprinting down. They're very great drills. They're not hard to learn. They're going to feel a little weird at first, but over time, they're going to become like second nature to you. The second thing you'll do is a specific sprint warm-up. So this will include you running sprints at about 60 to 70% of your maximum speed, again, to prepare your body for what you're about to do. Again, you're not going to get your sprints warmed up by doing the bench press. You're going to. By
the way, some of you might be familiar with that last concept where you do like a 60% effort or a 70% effort, where you're being relatively gentle. That is definitely still a component of like a warm-up. That's just a very specific part of the warm-up. And it's what you do after that. Sometimes you'll hear that referred to as like strides. It's like, hey, we're going to have you do like 5 strides, So if you guys are for those of you who are, more familiar with that term, you'll see that. But
sprints warmed up by performing sprints. And the third thing that you'll do to prepare yourself is, if you're not comfortable on a flat track, this is when you want to start off by running hill sprints. Now, you run the hill sprint. The hill sprints are harder than the flat sprints, but the hill sprints will not allow you to reach full speed, which will not allow you to get injured. So we've got 3 options here. I'm going to go through all of them in the video. Hope you enjoy it. Let's get into it right now.
By the way, on that one, you guys might notice that actually doesn't look like he's doing much there. I can't stop interrupting. But what he's actually doing, you'll notice he's stabbing the ground and pulling with his foot. You see how he's got that like big snap at the very end, and his heel never touches the ground. That's actually a very good acceleration drill. He's doing, all of these are marching versions of the more speedy, like skipping versions. I don't think they have any of the marching versions in your textbook. They're all the skipping versions of things. But you would still do like an A skip and a B skip and a C skip. You would just be doing these drills that he's got like much faster. Straight leg kicks or toy soldiers or Frankenstein walks, whatever you want to call them. There we go. So there's the A skip, right? So yeah, he's driving it up just like he did with the A march. I'll do B. There's the. Second example. He's probably gonna do a middle B skip. No, I just went straight to the regular B skips. So there's your B skips. I hate B skips. Takes a lot of hamstring flexibility. There's the D skips. Looks like the running man. If anybody even knows what the running man is, I'm like realizing how like old I am now. High knees. Butt kicking. One of my all-time favorites. Love that. A little bit of karaoke action, so he's getting a little bit of lateral movement in here. Obviously, we don't need a ton of lateral movement when we're just sprinting. There's the bounding. He's doing a double leg bound. You don't actually have to do that. I would just say regular bounding. A couple long jumps here. And now he's working on his strides. So he's going to go do, you know, a gentle 50% max effort sprint. And then he's going to raise that up to maybe a 60% effort, 70%, take himself up to 80%, and then maybe 90%. And then at that point, like you really aren't going to do any like full 100% all out sprints until, you know, it's actually like, if it's a training session, then yeah, obviously you're going to do your reps and stuff. But that is all of like his very specific warm up. And that is a very, very, very good track warm up. And very similar to the one that I usually put people through, similar to the one that we're going to do when we meet in person. So all of those things you'll notice we're all about like learning how to kind of stay on the balls of the feet. You notice how like springy he was and like all of his steps. Like that guy had really like that guy is definitely a terrific sprinter. You know, like he knows exactly what he's doing. You know, going through that progression, guys, if you're working on your speed, if you want to like get more serious about this kind of stuff, what I recommend is just like, I think this is a pretty in-depth routine. I don't think you necessarily have to, I mean, this would probably be, I mean, if you were doing like 10 yards of each of those things, that's probably a 15-minute warm-up overall, you know, which is pretty lengthy if you ask me. Now, if your whole workout for the day is just like running sprints, like and that makes sense for him. I think this is literally a video that's meant to be for, you know, specific like sprinters. You know, yeah, warm up 15 minutes, cool down 20 minutes, you know, and then your workout only needs to be 30 minutes long or so, you know. It doesn't need to be like a massive, huge 60-minute workout the way strength training is, you know. That's still going to be plenty of repetitions. But if you are getting more into this, if you guys are playing sports and things like that, like I know a couple of you guys play in some pickup games and leagues and stuff for different various sports out there. If you guys are doing that, get yourself a just simple dynamic routine like this that you do every time, and you get it in your bones and you know exactly what order it is. Me, I love like, I love to do like a walking butt kicker, a walking high knee with like a march, into like straight leg kicks, into like a hen peck, into walking lunges. And then I will usually go through like a more track specific drill where I'll do some high knees. I'll do some butt kickers that are explosive, right? A skips. I should do B. I hate B skips, personally. But like, yeah, A skips, B skips, and then I'll probably pick like one more, either bounding or maybe an explosive high jump, something like that I can get through in 5-10 minutes. That's just going to get me nice and warm. My entire nervous system is going to get turned on, and I'm like ready to kind of go out there and sprint. That is what I do before Ultimate every day that I play. It's what I mean, later today when I'm out on the field, like that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna show up, I'm working my static stretches, which are gonna turn everything off. And I don't want that before I'm gonna go try to be explosive for the next 2 hours. So I will go do my static stretches, but then I follow it up with my track workout. And I go through the same combination that I've been using for ever. And it's a warm-up. I don't need to change it up as much. You know what I mean? It's really just there to serve its purpose of like, wake up, those are the very specialized drills that are going to kind of help you with like your overall running form, and make those things natural for you. Yeah. So next, any questions on that? I feel like that was like that's a good spot for discussion. Questions or comments chiming in. Anybody have a warm up that they love and they want to mention? Please feel free. No, not so much. Okay.
I have a question.
Oh, yeah.
Do those ankle weights help with speed at all, or is that more like strength?
Not really. So that's a great question. So I don't love ankle weights. So I think they can be okay. I think they can be really good in some capacity. Like if you're going to do like A skips and B skips and things like that, I think that an ankle weight can somewhat be handy. But here's, let's like use the example of like a weighted vest, for instance, right? Because we're actually about to start talking about like, what about like force and velocity, right? Weighted vests, ankle weights, all those things. One of the problems that they have, let's see here, sprinter. We have a picture of sprinting. There we go. We're going to pull up the man himself. That's actually him in the middle of his stride. Yeah, I want this one. Copy image. And all right, the man himself, right? So here's the thing about like weighted vests, ankle weights, and wrist weights. They are all relying on gravity as a resistance. All of that is an example of like resistance using like gravity, right? Gravity pulls this way, straight down, right? That's the direction of the Earth's gravitational pull. Running, sprinting is not working against this. You're not going this way when you're sprinting. You're going this way. So you actually want to have a resistance. Like if I'm purposefully sprinting this way, I want a resistance that goes this way, right? That's actually why these blocks are here. That is something for him to push off of as like, and it's resisting him moving backwards. It pulls, or pushes, right? Whereas like if I were trying to get better at like jumping or something, yeah, an ankle weight, an arm weight, a weighted vest for sure. That'd be really great because like, if I'm trying to go, up, then yeah, I want my resistive force to go this way. You know what I mean? So I personally don't love ankle weights. I don't love weighted vests and things like that as a tool for speed drills. That doesn't mean that I don't like them in general. I actually think if you're going to go hiking, for instance, you want to wear a weighted vest to make your life a little harder and burn extra calories. Hiking is going up a hill like this. And so when you're, gravity, that'd be the steepest hill ever. Gravity's pulling this way. That's actually great. You know what I mean? I think that then, I think that if you're hiking, then a weighted vest can be great. Or ankle weights or anything. But in terms of getting better at sprinting, I don't love it, personally. I know some trainers who swear by it, and they're in great shape. But me personally, when I look at the mechanics of it, it doesn't really make as much sense. Yeah, of course. That's a good one, because honestly, and that they're never in your book. And by the way, I own a weighted vest. I think you can get them on Amazon. Dude, they have, check this out. Where's the one that I bought? They have like a little 25 pounder. That's like, no, that's not the right one. Where's mine? There it is. $36. And it only came with, I only bought it with like 20 pounds worth of weight. So I got like the cheapo version, Oh, and I did get it with shoulder pads, which was nice. $45. That's honestly not bad, but 20 pounds is plenty. Like a lot of people will get these like, they'll do these like really extreme 140-pound vests and stuff. And it's like, that is so much force that it does really take away from your velocity. Whereas like 20 pounds, I find is about, just under 10% of my, or just over 10% of my body weight. That's like perfect for me, yeah. What's up, Amber? Question.
And it kind of ties into the question he asked. You mentioned that ankle weights will not help with speed necessarily, and that you have a preference of not like using it. But what about swimming now? Because it's like more of a like resistance, and you're like,
yes. Now, oh man, I've had this conversation with my mom before. In fact, it's funny. This flashed into my head while I was explaining the other one. I was thinking about the time I explained this all to my mom. So my mom does like pool classes, and she like goes to those things. If you're wearing like ankle weights in a pool and you're trying to keep yourself from sinking this way by going this way, yes, I do think that can have a positive benefit. However, if you're swimming, like if you're wading water.
well, like what I mean is like, those little those water weights, those water, how you move your arms left, right,
yes,
or forward, back, and they say it kind of builds up, speed, and it builds muscle also. Like you can, swing faster because you're like punching forward, I guess you would say.
Yes. So yeah, you'll see people wear like those specific like weights that kind of like pull you down this way. If you're treading water, so you're trying to get like back up as the weight's pulling you down, I think it's great. Like a weighted vest during a treading situation, big fan. Think it's awesome. However, you'll notice that they sell these right here, these little dumbbells that are made of foam that weigh practically nothing. What's that?
Yeah, I've seen those before.
So these actually are sort of the opposite. They float to the top, so you have a hard time pushing them down.
Mm-hmm.
I would argue that this is actually a little bit better for something if you are swimming back and forth. So if you're swimming like this, then you want the resistance to go this way. If you're treading against water to stay up, then you want the resistance to go this way. So again, like the answer is kind of complicated, but like, yeah, I'd say weights could be really good depending on the exercise you're using.
Would that help with speed?
Yeah, I forgot to answer the rest of your question. The other question you had, can you work on like speed sprinting drills in the pool? Absolutely.
Yeah, like even if you didn't have weights, like those, like the not like the ones you just showed, but the ones that kind of stay underwater and you're like punching forward,
Yeah.
Or even if you didn't have
if you're
weights at
doing
all.
like a forward punch, you would
Yeah.
actually probably want to use like a resistance band
Okay.
against you going attached to the wall here. So you'd
Mm-hmm.
want to push against the resistance band. That's boxers too, guys. Like any boxers out there who are trying to work on like their punching power, you'll see people like they'll punch with like 2 pound, 3 pound weights in their hand. I hate that exercise. I think it doesn't make any mechanical sense at all. If you want to go like 1 or 2 pounds, I think you're going to be fine. You know, but you'll see people do these like 10-pound like punches with dumbbells, and it's like your resistance is pulling here and you're trying to get more explosive going this way. You're going to be much better off taking a resistance band and attaching it to a wall behind you and then punching against that resistance band like that. That's going to give you resistance in the correct direction. You know what I mean? So I would say the same thing there. In a pool, it applies exactly the same. You'd be punching in this direction, so you'd want the resistance to go that way. But I want to show you. See now, these are people actually swimming, and then there's a picture. I don't know why there's a shark, but underwater sprinting drills for track athletes. There we go. Yeah, this is very difficult for me to find like perfect examples of, because this is kind of a niche specific thing. Not a lot of sprinters do get, not a lot of like sprint athletes do get into like pools to work out, but I think this is a really great way to take some of the impact off. And it is still really good to work through, like if you're trying to learn how to like knee drive and like knee kick and all those things. I think that pool drills actually can be really great for that. So like, for instance, he's doing high knees right now in the water. I think that's great because again, now he's like resisted as he's moving through sludge in all directions, right? Like he's got this viscous fluid, you know, resisting him as he drives his knee up and resisting him as he goes back. So that's really helpful. And I think that can definitely improve your power. Getting in the water and just punching in general, yeah, I think that can help as well. Just being in water. I don't think that you would need a weight to get those benefits. You want to make it even harder, then you would just resist it even further. Does that answer your question, Amber? I kind of got a little sidetracked.
Oh, it did, especially at the very end as well, because I was wondering also if you even needed weights in order to do so. But I feel like the weights can kind of just how would you say, like you mentioned, the weights would kind of just help with as far as like the speed, not only the speed, but it just helps. Like even if you didn't have the weight, you can just like swing your arm like a right hook, but it'll help, you know.
Yeah, exactly. The other thing I don't love about weighted punching that I'm not a huge fan of is also like you are transferring the energy from your muscles to this dumbbell that's now moving through space and you're attached to it. So the other thing I don't like is that you kind of get like the Thor, you know how Thor flies? Like he throws his hammer and then he catches it and it carries him off the ground. Like Thor can't actually fly. He can just kind of throw himself, which makes no sense, but that's how it works. Like that, I don't love that for the human body because we're not Asgardian, you know, like, so when you transfer a bunch of energy to a weight that then pulls you, I don't love the jerking on the joints that you get from that. I'm not a huge fan of that as well. That's another reason why I don't love weighted punching. I love resistance punching.
Doesn't technically he just kind of doesn't like repair himself after so long? Like it's kind of really hard to rip his muscles anyway.
I mean, when you look like Chris Hemsworth, I imagine you can get away with a lot. Yeah, what's up, Marjan? You have a question?
So spring endorsement also would make your knees stronger too, or no, has nothing to do with your knee?
I missed it. I'm sorry. It's what was it?
The spring endorsement, like the one that the guy was exercising at the pool.
Yeah,
the one that you just showed.
Sprinting underwater. Yeah, absolutely.
Yes,
it's a great way to build. I mean, honestly, I used to run. So when I worked at, honestly, we can actually probably find this. Yeah, sure enough. Oh my God. You want to see an old video of me? This is an old commercial for the resort I used to work at. I'm gonna skip to where I'm in the pool. But I used to run these pool workouts. Come on. Is it the end? There we go. Where we would put people in the pool and make them like sprint and stuff. This is actually, oh, they're taking Zumba in the pool. That's not footage of me, actually. That's fine. This is also very fun. Even if it's just Zumba, you're still like, yeah, you are dealing with resistance, and that resistance of the water makes things much more challenging. That's funny. I was really hoping for, I thought there was footage of like me teaching a pool class. Maybe it's in this trainer's video. Oh, that's the pool Zumba again. Good Lord, there's a lot of footage of Derek teaching these pool classes. Anyway, oh wait, nope, there it is. There's me going like crazy. So imagine like doing that in the pool, right? Like I had people do these rapid bicycle kicks underwater. And so like, yeah, it's way harder. You have to snap your hamstring is going to be resisted as you're trying to snap back. Your hip flexor is going to be resisted as you're trying to snap forward, right? And you're going through this whole range of motion here. So yeah, absolutely. I think that like getting under the water can be a really good way to work through stuff like that. Just like running in sand.
Yeah, that's very interesting. When I was in Panama, the guy at the pool, we had like different classes, like for tourism and stuff. So he did the same thing that you just told me, like the Zumba on the water. And then also we had like a bike inside the pool. And
yeah, those are so cool.
The bike, yeah, and then he have us to go on top of the bike and lay down and do the same movement that you did with the what is that called? Like you biking, pretty much like when you're laying down. Yeah.
That
was very.
I've never seen that. I'd love to see that. That's cool.
I have a video of him. I can send it to you.
Yeah. Bring it up when we meet next week. Just pull it up on your phone. I'd love to see it.
Okay.
Just out of curiosity. Yeah, that's fun.
So it would help to improve your knees and
absolutely. In general, in the same way that any resistance training would. Now, I will say, all of this that we're talking about today is very good for speed. Is it going to improve like your leg stabilization? Yeah, a little bit. Is it going to improve like your overall strength output? Probably not a ton, because the resistance here is very, very low. There's only so much resistance. Like if you were to fill a pool with like maple syrup, then yeah, it'd probably be a little even harder, because it's like sludgier. But is it good? Yes. It's good for this specific thing we're talking about today. I'd say these are all really good speed drills. And then obviously it's a very good calorie burn. Best way to build muscle? Probably not. Best way to build stabilization? Probably not. I mean, you're probably better off just like balancing on land, which applies to our life in general more often.
Yeah.
But yeah, again, it's a specific tool to be used at the right time.
Okay.
Yeah. Cool.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, this is great. So let's look at the components of a speed drill here really quick. This is kind of funny because like we've got these specialized drills thing here, which I think would be better to talk about in a second. So I'm going to come back to this. So speed, guys. Remember our formula for force times velocity, right? Force times velocity equals power output. Well, this actually works exactly the same way for speed. Let me just go ahead. I'm just going to delete all this. This actually works exactly the same. If we talk about like force times velocity equals power, right? That's our formula for power there. Sorry, I just know I'm going to need some space here in just a second. Okay. Well, guess what? This formula actually works for running as well. Think about like the two things that are happening while you're running. If I'm running like left foot to right foot to left foot to right foot, right? Think about what's happening there. There's two components to what's going to get me to travel forward. One component is how much distance I'm covering per step. And the other component is how often I'm taking those steps, right? So it's distance covered and then the amount of steps taken. So the formula for a speedy person is actually almost exactly the same as our force times velocity equals power formula. Force would be your stride length times your stride rate equals speed. Okay, so now we actually see a little formula here that looks really darn similar to a formula we've had in the past. Your stride length, right? This is the distance you are covering every step. So if you can cover a lot of distance every single step, because maybe you're making a really explosive like jump every time, it's going to improve your overall speed. This is why sprinters start on the running blocks, because when they are able to take, like, watch that first jump off the block. Look at how big the very first stride is. So you get into position. And like that first one, I mean, honestly, it's so hard to see because they're all so friggin' fast. But if we slow this down just a little bit, right? Look at this first big step here. If you look at the distance covered, I mean, like, that's huge compared to like the distance covered on the next one and the next one. So they're trying to cover as much distance on the steps. Now, that being said, if you cover too much distance on your step, if you overstride, that can reduce your power in the same way that making something too heavy reduces your velocity, you know? So we don't also just want to take our legs out. We're not trying to like run like this, you know? Yeah, I can take these huge freaking steps every time. That's also not going to make us very fast, you know? But if we can if we can be very explosive and, like, you know, if I'm covering a large amount of distance every single step, I'm going to be a lot faster in the end. And then if I can learn how to increase my stride rate, if I can snap the leg through and get to my next step explosively and quickly, that's also going to improve my overall speed. So I need to have those two components in order to be able to really improve like my speed here, right? And improve my overall like velocity. I need to have a high level of both of those components. So we've got some drills that are going to help us increase our stride length. And we've also got some drills that are going to help us increase our stride rate. And that will hopefully improve our overall speed. So your stride rate, by definition, is how quickly an individual is taking steps. So it's the time taken to complete like a cycle of left to right, and you're back, you know. And then your stride length is the distance covered in a single step. So going back here to our very specialized drills that we have, right? Two very good drills for improving your sprinting. And obviously we talked about, like, yeah, you can sprint in the pool, you know. That would be really good kind of for both of those. Actually, I think it'd be really good for your rate and your length. But just breaking these down individually, we've got what's called an overspeed drill. Okay, so overspeed drills are a very advanced form, a very advanced technique that you should be doing with a client who has proper running form. Do not do this with clients who don't, because they will fall flat on their face. But overspeed drills are basically where you are going to actually accelerate. What is happening to Keenan Thompson in this video? You are going to accelerate at a speed faster than you are technically capable of running. So see how he's got this resistance band here? He is actually pulling the athlete forward. Now, if he does not turn his feet over fast enough, what's going to happen? He's going to hit the, he's going to get pulled down. He's going to hit the ground, right? He's not going to be able to keep his feet under him. So an overspeed drill is where you actually pull on the client in order to accelerate them faster than they normally would be capable of. And then they have to learn how to turn their feet over faster. You can also achieve this by simply, nobody give me an example. Okay. Oh, let's see my history from the last time. Downhill. You can also achieve this through like downhill sprinting. So that's not the most, not the world's greatest example, but that's also a way of having like an overspeed drill. So if you pick a hill that has like a slight downhill grade, anywhere from about like 5 to 6%, if you go at a hill at about that rate, you have to learn how to, like, if you're trying to sprint down that hill as fast as you can. I mean, all of us have probably done that at some point in our lives, where when you're sprinting downhill, you feel like you're gonna tip over, and at some point you're just going to eat it, you know, like you're just going to fall flat on your face. Well, the faster you can learn how to turn your feet over, the more likely you are to improve that stride rate, and that's going to help with speed. So adding a little bit of like overspeed drills to an athlete who's trying to learn how to get faster can be a really, really helpful tool. And you can do that through like pulling a client, or, you know, pushing them and they have to like learn how to like keep up with it, or you can do it by having them sprint downhill. Now the other component, the other half of this formula, that's our stride rate, right? The other half is our stride length. We want to cover as much ground per step as possible. So this is where resisted sprinting comes in. The idea of being in a pool and trying to sprint forward while this like weight and sludge of the water is like keeping you from being able to turn your feet, right? That's a resistance. Generally, we want to work against a horizontal load. So if we look at like resisted speed drills, when you look at like, you know, this version here, you don't just want to like have a you don't just want to have like a weighted vest pulling you down into the ground. That's not going to help as much. But if you're actually resisting the client with, like, you can see he's got a resistance band tied around her waist, she's going to sprint and he's trying to pump the brakes the whole time, trying to slow her down, right? She has to work against that. So now every step's a little bit more powerful. So when you finally take that resistance away, she's just going to cover a lot of ground every single step, you know, kind of like when you go to pick something up and you think it's going to be really heavy and it's really light and you're like, you know, that's what we're going for. And we don't want to go super crazy on the load here. It should be 10% of your body weight. Pushing a weight sled's a really good example. You know, resistance bands like we saw there is a really good example. That's really good for improving that stride length. And it's also really good at teaching you how to drive from the ball of your foot instead of from the heel, which is helpful. So that is sort of the formula there, right? So we've got, we have specific exercises that are going to help with our stride rate. We've got specific exercises that are going to help with our stride length. And then this entire time we've been talking about like what proper running form is, and that's your overall running mechanics. You do need to have a good foundation of proper running mechanics before you really can work on any of this, really. So we need to look at like what we mean by posture. Guys, this is a test question that is a little bit wordy. So I do want you guys to all get this particular part right here memorized. It's a little wordy. There's a lot of like words here and they are opposites of each other. So that sometimes gets very confusing for people to memorize. I apologize, but this is one of our more annoying little memorize-y type questions. But NASM loves this as a question. And so what we have are proper front side mechanics and proper backside mechanics. So hopefully I can break this down for you in a way that makes it pretty clear. Let's just take her by herself. Okay, so proper frontside mechanics are going to be the mechanics of your front side of your body. Your backside mechanics, guess what? The mechanics of your backside of your body, right? So it's the posterior leg, right? Because we are slightly leaning forward. So this leg's behind, that's part of backside mechanics. This leg's in front, that's part of front side mechanics. This arm's in front, that's part of front side mechanics. So front side mechanics, we'll put those in, that's not the color I should go with. We'll put those in orange. No, I always use red for everything. Yeah, red works. All right, front side mechanics we're gonna put in red. Backside mechanics we're gonna put in purple. So front side mechanics, right? That is the what's happening in the front leg. That is going to be spine in a neutral position. Okay, that is going to be hip flexion. It's also going to be knee flexion, and it's going to be ankle dorsiflexion. And let's just make this font way smaller. So those are our proper front side mechanics. So the neutral spine is what we see here. Hip flexion is what we see right here. Knee flexion right there. And ankle dorsiflexion right here, right? Because they're not doing a great job. I'm going to add a little line here that they decided to miss. There should be a line right there connecting those two. So there's our dorsiflexion. Okay, so all of those things. So neutral spine, hip flexion, I'll let this kind of stay straight. Knee flexion, ankle dorsiflexion. That is what we want to see in our front side mechanics every time you're stepping. So you should pull your toe up and snap your knee through so you can get to your next step. That is going to make you a much more efficient runner. So when you're trying to go through, you're not going to drag to the other side, right? If I drag, my foot could skip on the floor, right? I will have to like maybe skip out to the side. A lot of people who have really tight calves have a hard time with dorsiflexion. So their foot just kind of stays lazy while they're running. That's creating air resistance and drag. And also like it makes the weight feel heavier because now it's further away from the levers that you're moving. So there's more torque. It's bad in a lot of different ways. So what we want to do when we finish with that back leg, we want to lift it up, knee flexion, and then pull that toe up, snap it forward so you can get to your next step. That is your proper front side mechanics, okay? So those are the areas we're going to see here. Now we also have our backside mechanics, right? Backside mechanics are your back leg. This way. That is going to be neutral spine. So nothing different there. But then we also want to have hip extension, knee extension, ankle plantar flexion. Okay, so this is actually kind of the opposite. You know, you can see again, we do have the neutral spine. That should stay the same. But the hip extension, right? The hip, the glute is extending away. The knee is extending away. That's a big angle, right? And then the ankle is extending, it's pointing away. So you do want to get those memorized because you'll again, you know, multiple choice questions. the way they're going to word this is they'll say something like, proper front side mechanics include, and it'll be like a colon or it'll be blank, and then you'll have 4 options. And, one of the wrong options is going to be like spine in a neutral position. If they're asking about front side mechanics, right? It'll say spine in a neutral position, hip flexion, knee flexion, ankle, and it'll say plantar flexion. And that's like, no, that's the wrong answer because they flipped it at the very end there. Like most of that answer was right, but then they flipped. So you guys that's I hate that type of multiple choice question. I'm with you on that, but that is probably one that you will see on your test. I assume not everybody's going to get that question, but they don't ask that many questions about SAQ. It's a very small section of the test because it's also a very small section of the workout. But regardless, I want to make sure that you guys do know kind of the difference there. And honestly, what we can also do in my little chart version here, we can kind of paint over this line. Right, this should be purple. So there's your front side mechanics versus your back side mechanics. Does that make sense, everybody? I hope this chart's messy looking, but did that come across clear? Your front leg and your back leg, basically. Okay, I'm seeing thumbs up. Cool. Okay, so there we go. So that's what's gonna give us our speed. Proper form and doing it the way we need to. So you're gonna see 3 phases for every stride cycle, for every step. Basically, you have your drive phase, recovery phase, and a support phase. So when we look at like your recovery phase is basically you transferring from being a front leg to the back leg, right? So you look at like your overall like walking cycle. They're being really advanced in all these versions. Stride phase. Everybody wants to have more. I like more, just not this example. There we go. There's a simple one. So you can kind of see like, she's got her front side step, and then that leg is going to transfer through the middle. So she's stabilizing and then, recovering, right? So your 3 phases, you've got your drive phase, which is the accelerating and kicking off the back there, right? Like my back leg pushing me forward, that's my drive phase. Now I'm going to hit the ground and recover on my opposite side, and then support that all the way through until it becomes the next drive phase. So it's this constant, 3-step cycle there, right? My left foot drives, and then I land and recover on my right foot, and I'm transferred to the other side. My right foot supports me all the way through, and then suddenly my right foot drives and I recover on my left foot recovers, supports me all the way through, drives, and the whole process repeats. And the faster you can do that, the faster you're going to be. So that is speed. Most of the day we spend talking about speed. Speed is the foundation for all of the other ones. These other ones are much easier to understand. So the next one we've got is agility. So agility is going to be question. Hold on. The last slide. Yes, you can. So that is we see there's our 3 distinct phases, right? So agility is more directional change, right? Agility is no sweat, Alexis. Agility is going to be all about like changing direction from one spot to another. So you can increase the agility demand of an exercise by making your angles sharper. Like let's say you start here and then you go here and then you go here and here, and so you're sprinting like this. This is a pretty good agility drill. If you were to like measure this, that's 90 degrees, right? These are all 90-degree turns. Not bad. Love a good agility drill. If I want to make this even harder, well, then I just need to make my angles sharper. So now instead of going like that, maybe I'll do like a W drill instead. Where now I sprint here, and now I've got a much sharper angle and another sharp angle, and then kind of a sharp angle at the end there. So now if we measure this, this is like, you know, sharper than 90, that's 45 degrees, right? So that's a much more agility based drill. Or I could just go here and then all of a sudden straight back here. That's way harder. I just realized I did my math wrong. This is why I'm a terrible, terrible math teacher. That wasn't a 45-degree angle. That was a 135-degree angle. I had it on the wrong axis there. So this version, that's not 40. It's not 45 degrees to here. It's 135. That's a sharper angle. Math is hard. I was particularly bad at geometry. But here, what if we went here, and then what if we went straight back to the first place, right? Well, now that's 180 degrees, right? Which is even freaking harder. So, and that's about as hard as it's going to get, you know, straight back in the opposite direction. That's the most advanced type of agility drills. So agility drills are all about directional change, right? And obviously there's speed in there, you know, you're picking up speed as you accelerate from one cone to the next. But when we say like multi-directional speed, that's what we're talking about with agility. So this is your ability to change direction, the angles, right? Accelerate. So like, you know, if I'm sprinting here and then I have to sprint over here, like I don't want to just blow through the car. I mean, you'll see that in like, you'll see it in baseball players who are not very agile sometimes. You'll see like, I'm sure I can find a John Boy Media rounding bases. Nah, maybe I can't find what I'm looking for. But you'll see people like, you know, you'll see baseball players like they got to stay in the lanes, you know, like when you look at like a baseball diamond, they're supposed to stay in there. But you'll see some guys just they'll just blast through really hard, and then they'll try to like round the base and they'll come way out of alignment, and it's like, ugh, like, you know, and it's they put way too much effort in speed, and they didn't put enough effort into like the agility of rounding like kind of a tight corner there. This is actually why in baseball you're allowed to run through first base, because it's much more competitive and explosive. If it's like, yeah, you hit that first, you know, you hit a grounder and it's like sprint to first base as hard as you can. Don't worry about getting to second. We don't need agility right now. Just sprint as hard as you can, you know? But if you're trying to make like an inside the park home run or a double or a triple or something like that, well, heck, you need to be able to like round those bases effectively, which means you need to be speedy, but you also need to be agile enough to stay in that tight circle there, right? So agility is not always like stopping and turning. Sometimes it's just making a really tight, you know, a tight turn there. So again, it's our multi-directional speed, key component to athleticism here, you know. So this is going to focus on accelerating and decelerating and changing direction. So a lot of our drills are going to involve accelerating, decelerating, and changing direction. So if we look in our book, you'll see this is stuff where it's like, yeah, side shuffle to the cone, side shuffle to the cone, side shuffle to the cone, back and forth, 180 degrees worth of turn, right? Or maybe those are all speed drills as well, actually, getting through there. Or maybe it looks something more like this, like a T drill, right? Or well, here's a 5-10-5 drill. So a 5-10-5 drill starts, you got 3 cones, and this is 10 yards apart, and then this is 5 yards. Not an architect. 5 yards here. 5 yards here. So this is the 5-10-5 drill. What you do is you start in the center, sprint over here, touch that cone with your hand. So you also get a little bit of like body position there. It's why it's somewhat of a quickness drill as well. Like I said, they're all kind of intertwined. Sprint all the way over here, touch that one. So that's a 10-yard sprint. And then an additional 5 at the very end. In the end, the drill ends when you get back to the center cone. So a good 5-10-5 drill should start sprint, sprint, sprint. And this should be as explosive as possible. And you'll see people do the 5-10-5. I'll pull up an NFL video here, which is definitely going to get my my video flagged, and my upload will probably not be allowed to be on Canvas. But you can see, right? Like, oh, actually, this is not actually the NFL. Never mind. This is owned by somebody else. In that case, I'm just gonna watch this one. Ah, did it? Yeah, I never find out until later. I might have to go back, and I'll go back, and whenever I do that, I just put up my old upload videos. Because that happens sometimes. Where's this guy doing it at speed? Good Lord, he's got nothing but like, he's breaking it down really well, but it's like all breakdown. I just want somebody doing it. Ugh. Oh man, just finding videos on the internet the way I want them to be is so freaking difficult. There we go. Sprint, touch, center. That's your 5-10-5 drill. And you do need to have that touch. You do want to make sure that you get that like hand touch, because this is also meant to be, you know, this is kind of this is very popular in football. We want to see that body shift as well. So really good drill. I mean, like you can tell this is all about accelerating, and then you got to decelerate, then you got to accelerate again. But because you're able to run further, you're running twice as far, right? So you're going to be able to accelerate a lot, which means you're going to have to put more effort into slowing down. If you watch my 5-10-5 drill, I have a little bit of a problem with this. I will sprint really hard to the first one, and then I'll sprint really hard to the second one, and I'll slow down. And my transition time at that second cone is much slower. And it's because I got way more up to speed around here, and then wasn't able to slow down in time because I put so much speed on. So that's actually one thing you want to keep in mind. Now, you could also do this with side shuffling, or you could do this with karaoke, right? For instance, like a T drill is a really good agility drill. And it's where you are going to sprint, side shuffle, karaoke, side shuffle, and back pedal. So it's a fairly complicated drill, you know, going from here to here, here, and here. And it looks like this. You go sprint, side shuffle, karaoke all the way through, side shuffle back, and then back pedal. Now you are going to need to be able to do 2 reps on this, because you'll notice you are only side shuffling to the left and karaokeing to the right. So if you want to keep your client even, you're going to need to do a second rep where you go in the reverse order. Here, 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 and then back. But now we're also working on different types of running, you know, and learning how to run forwards and learning how to run backwards is also a big part of athleticism. There's the classic box drill: sprint, sprint, side shuffle, back pedal, karaoke. So kind of the same as the T drill, just in a slightly different order. You can do the modified box drill. Now, modified box drill I consider to be mostly a quickness drill. We'll get into that one in just a second. But that's a really good. That's very much like a, you know, it's a lot of directional change. I mean, you can see here, if you were sprinting from cone to cone, that's a lot of direction change. So agility, all about directional change, right? Multi-directional speed. So when you're working with clients on agility, you always want to be really gentle here. Start with proper movement. Make sure they know how to do the exercise. Walk them through it. Make sure it's clear. A lot of times I will give everybody a minute to just walk through the combination so they get used to it. then you can work on like the speed of that. And then you can work on like reaction-based speed, where you might change things up and they don't know what you're going to say. So like a T drill, and then you're standing at the middle cone, and sometimes they go left, sometimes they go right. They don't know, right? It's like they sprint, and then you're going to point, and then they have to like react to you. And we had a little bit of quickness in there, you know, because remember, quickness is response time. It's hand-eye coordination. It's like, you know, listening to someone else. So that is a good example of agility there. Everybody clear on agility? It's basically speed, but at directional change.
Yep.
Cool. All right, so quickness. Now, quickness, like I said, is hand-eye coordination. So there's a couple different versions of quickness here. There is, let's see here. Obviously, that's pretty good. There we go. I want to find this. Oh, hold on. I want to find this one specifically, hand-eye coordination. Oh, well, actually, this is great. You'll see boxers use this. Have you guys ever seen one of these? It's goofy looking. I get it. But like, this is a really good example of like a quickness drill, right? He has no idea where that ball is going to go. I mean, he kind of does, you know, but he has to like move and kind of like match it, right? Pretty darn good. You know, like that is very much like it takes a lot of coordination to be able to do that. Oh, come on. Where's the basket? I can't remember who it was. Oh, no. Oh, I can't believe I can't find this. There is this amazing video of, I can't remember what NBA player it is, but they're kneeling on a stability ball, and they have to like catch these reactive like little jacks here. Oh, is it an NFL player? Well, that explains why I couldn't freaking find it. Although it doesn't explain why I typed in NBA player and it pulled up what I needed. All right, watch this video. This video is amazing.
How we stop that?
It looks like Alvin.
Standing on the Swiss ball. What's really cool about this one is if you listen to the audio, I'm actually calling out a color. Sometimes I'm calling out a hand and a color. So he has to challenge his hand-eye coordination, his mental, his audio, listening and hearing which hand I'm calling, which color I'm calling, all while trying to maintain his center of balance. It was just unbelievable how comfortable he was. You see him almost lose his balance, and then he just pulls it right back in and just keeps it going like nothing ever happened. I mean, it's just incredible, incredible.
It's tough.
Oh, I love it. I love that video. I'm glad we found it. But it's crazy. I mean, you think about like he's saying like
loses balance,
left hand red, and he's saying right hand.
And then he just pulls it right back.
Blue.
Back in and just keeps it going.
And he just calls him out as he throws him at him, right? So that is very much like a quickness drill. Now, he could also do this during an agility drill, right? Like I could have, you know, I could have a client run like a T drill. And then I'm standing like over here, right? So when they sprint here, I could throw one of those little jacks at them and say like right hand blue. And then like they sprint to the cone, they stop, they see it, they catch it, throw it back to me, sprint back over to the next cone. I could follow them over there and throw, or have another coach throw, right? And then they could throw and say left hand white, you know? And so now they're getting very much an agility drill. So when you look at like, players like, turning over their shoulder and catching things, right? Responding to things. Those are what we mean when we say quickness drills, right? It is all about your reaction time and the time it takes you to execute like a specific movement. You guys have probably, if anybody in here played like high school football or college football, like if anybody played like a lot of football, you've probably done that drill where you're jumping your feet and then your coach will say drop and you have to hit the ground and then get back up on your feet and drum the feet as fast as possible. Very, 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 very popular drill. And whoever's like the slowest usually has like extra push-ups or something like that, right? So they're trying to like get you to react in real time, because when you're playing sports, you're paying attention to the other player and you're seeing them do something. You need to be able to get in there and interrupt that. So quickness is a key aspect of a lot of athletic success. The boxer who's better at moving their head out of the way, there's going to be a lot less damage at the end of that fight. So very much hand-eye coordination, very much reactionary demand that we're seeing there. So that is your guide to speed, agility, and I forgot to show you some from the book. So this is the modified box drill, and what you do is you label out the cones. The coach is going to call out which cone they have to go to. They don't know until you say it, and you don't know until you say it, right? You're going to point and say, like if I was coaching Amber on how to do this, I would say, maybe for her, I'd be like 1, and then like she touches cone 1, gets back to the center, and then I shout the next cone 3. So she goes over to 3. I take her over to 4, right? Back to 4, 2, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 1, right? Like there's our new like combo. Had no idea what order she was going to go in, right? So she has to like listen and respond in real time and think and like, and that's why that's a very good quickness drill. A partner mirror drill is another really good one. One partner is going to try to get to this cone and this person's going to like follow them and try and do the same thing. And so you're going to try and lose your partner. So you do little like body jukes, right? Turn and grab, like grabbing something and like literally working your way over it, like usually over your shoulder. These are a really good one. Agility balls. Agility balls are basically like dog toys, actually. But they're these little like reaction balls. They're like $10 and you throw them and you have no idea which way they're going to bounce. And so you have to, catch them. Really good for baseball players learning how to like ground a ball. So those are the various quickness drills that are in your book. There's more out there, obviously, a lot of sports specific ones. I will take you guys through a couple frisbee based ones because that's the only thing I know to how to halfway throw decently, although that's also not entirely true. I'm a receiver, not a handler, so my throws are not always the best. But we'll get a chance to kind of practice a little bit of that when I take you guys through it. You'll have to run and catch. So when you are designing an SAQ program, you usually want to do it 2 to 3 times a week, usually on non-consecutive days because they're going to be pretty exhausted from the last one. Really, it's anywhere from 45 to 60 minutes if you want to do like a very specific, like full-on SAQ workout. But it should be based on like the needs of your athlete and your sport. Now, one thing that I will say, you definitely want to manage your work to rest ratios with SAQ. If you are using this for cardio, I actually do not think of SAQ as cardio. Yes, it is a lot of running. And yeah, I will use it as cardio with my clients all the time. Burns a lot of calories, Honestly, the stuff I'm going to have you guys do will probably feel like cardio. But I actually don't think of SAQ as cardio. I think it's much more similar to powerlifting. You're working very, very hard for a very short period of time as you get through the drill. And if you want to like keep working hard, you need to take adequate rest before you can do another round. We are trying to train somebody at maximal intensity. We're trying to make them actually faster. So if we have them go rep after rep after rep after rep with no rest in between, what ends up happening is they're going to slow down. They're losing intensity. And yeah, they're getting a great calorie burn. They're probably having a lot of fun actually, which is great. And why we use it that way for some clients. But we're not necessarily actually making them more explosive. If you want them to be more explosive, they need to take adequate rest. For instance, like a 100-meter dash athlete sprints for 10 seconds, and then they will take 5 minutes of rest. That's a crazy high amount. You know, sometimes I know people who take like 8 to 10 minutes of rest before they do their next one. That's a lot of rest, but it ensures that you are fully 100% recovered. That 10 seconds should be nothing but 100% max effort the entire time by doing that. So make sure you are managing your work to rest ratios. If you're using SAQ for cardio, which most of you probably will, most clients that hire us are mostly doing this for fun, then yeah, you don't have to take that much rest. You can just go right into the next rep, keep the calorie burn high. Are they running their fastest? Probably not, but they're running hard enough to burn calories, which is good. You know, yeah, that's still totally fine. But if you do want to have like an athlete get more explosive, you need to take adequate rest periods. So how do we implement this into the OPT model? If we're picking a client and we're, why is it, when did this start happening? Why did my color switch? If we start looking at how to incorporate this into the OPT model. Now, like I said earlier, there's no such thing as a stabilization speed drill or a power speed drill or an agility strength drill, right? Instead, this kind of works the way our cardio did. Remember how we did stage 1 cardio for clients in stabilization, stage 2 for clients in strength, and stage 3 for clients in power? And that was, you know, stage 3 was zones 1, 2, and 3. Stage 2 was zones 1 and 2, but not 3. Stage 1 was zone 1, but not 2 and 3. That's kind of how this works here. Clients who are in the stabilization level, you're probably primarily just going to give them speed only drills, primarily. So what we say is like, we're picking drills that focus on limited horizontal inertia. So we're limiting the agility, and we're limited unpredictability. So limited quickness. They're going to know what the drill is. They're going to know how to get through it. And it really shouldn't involve that much directional change. Now, if you want to have a little bit of directional change in there, I fully support that. I think that's fine, you know, but it shouldn't be like maximal directional change when you're a client in stabilization. If your client's in strength, well, now you can do drills that allow for a little bit of greater horizontal inertia, but you still want to limit unpredictability, which is kind of a fancy way of saying primarily we're focusing on speed, and now we're also incorporating a little bit of agility for any client in the strength level. So greater horizontal inertia, greater unpredictability, limited unpredictability. So limiting the quickness drills, you know, not a lot of hand-eye coordination that has to take place there. And then clients who are in the power level, yeah, you can give them all of the drills, you know, speed, agility, and quickness drills. We're doing drills that allow for maximal horizontal inertia, so a lot of agility, and maximal unpredictability. That's where you often get into those very sports specific, hard as you can go, sprint out, turn, and catch this ball, you know. That's how it's going to work. Or sprint down the line, you know, hit this cone, stop, and make a shot, right? Like those are all, yeah, that's a hand-eye coordination thing, you know, paired with a sprint, which is, you know, speed, but also maybe you had to like run through a specific route in order to do it, or maybe you just had to like stop on a dime. That is an agility, you know, that becomes very agility based as well. So that's how we sort of incorporate that into, you know, the OPT model. So again, if we looked at like, you know, a month 1, month 2, month 3 situation, you know, this is going to be our client who's in the stabilization level. We're going to primarily focus on we're going to primarily use speed drills. And if we move over to like month 2, where we're in the strength level, we're primarily using speed and agility And then if our client's in their third month of training, they're in the power level. Primarily using speed and agility and quickness. And that's how you would sort of progress through those 3 months there. Again, I know I'm not doing any sets and reps and stuff. We're getting to that later in this course, but any questions on how we're going to choose those exercises, guys? Everybody pretty clear on all the SAQ stuff today?
Yep.
All
Pretty
right,
clear.
cool. Well,
Yes,
heck,
sir.
hopefully you guys are stoked for next week. I love field trip day. It's gonna be so fun. But all right, y'all, I will let you out of here, and we'll see you tomorrow.